video of this session.
Okay, so there's a PDF of the presentation that is just being loaded into the comment box. And maybe we'll just give it 5 more minutes. I know it takes people some time to get onto Zoom. Vivian, how do you feel about just 5 more minutes, allowing people to come on?
Sorry, I wanted to, I muted myself. We're at 6:05. You know, I think I would suggest we start, but with the Zoom video.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we won't, and that'll give time for people to come on without missing any of the content.
Okay.
Restaurants and bars.
So I am going to mute everyone for now. And I'm just going to unmute Vivian. And I'm going to share a quick video tutorial that I made that just gives us the basics of how to use Zoom. I made it for the agency plan meeting, but it is the same information.
Strong initiative, especially at the urban mayors. Mayor Green tells me that the upcoming holidays, starting with Thanksgiving, will determine the fate of these 4 urban cities in Essex County. Governor Murphy has said essentially the same thing for the state of New Jersey. In East Orange, Brian Thompson, News 4 New York.
Hold on. I apologize. I'm just having some trouble finding the video. Okay. Everyone, I'm Liz Davidoff. I'm the development coordinator here at the Housing Authority. I just want to go over some of the specifics of how this Zoom meeting is going to go. So to start off with, you are all on mute. You can tell you're on mute because if you open up the participants channel, which you can do by clicking on your bottom menu over here, you find this will show you a list of all the participants that are in the meeting. If you find your name, you'll see that the microphone next to your name is crossed out like it is with Katie's name here. You'll also see that Katie has her video camera off. Now, if you're comfortable having your video camera on, you can just press this button. Katie, can you turn your video camera on? There you go. Okay, so if that's comfortable for you, otherwise it's perfectly fine for you to keep your video camera off during the meeting. You can also go to this option down here in your bottom left-hand corner and start and stop your video. During the meeting, if you have questions or comments, oh, sorry, let me just start out by saying if your name is not listed as your first and last name, please scroll over your name, hit more and go to rename, and then just type your name as your first and last name and then the site that you're representing. So when you speak or make a comment, we know who you are and which site you're from. And that makes it easier for all of us. During the director's presentation, if you have a question or a comment, you can type it in the chat box. So if you don't see the chat box, scroll over the bottom of your screen, press chat, and this will pop up in your bottom right-hand corner. Now what you want to do is make sure that you are sending the message to everyone in meeting. And you would say any comment or question you have, when, I'm using this as an example, when is the date of the public hearing? You would just type it in. And what I will do is I will queue up your questions and comments, and at the end of the presentation, Director Brady-Phillips will go through each of them. So feel free to do that. If you would like to send a message to someone privately, you also have that option. So I can go to Katie and I can send a message to her. Now, this is good if you have a technical question during the presentation. You can ask either Danielle Masab, Sabrina Quinones, or Katie McGriff, and they can get back to you about technical questions. You also have the phone number that was given to you at the beginning of the meeting. At the end of the presentation, after Director Brady-Phillips has gone through all the comments that are queued, you will have an opportunity to speak. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask you to look at your section, your name in the participants list, again, in the top right-hand corner, and there is an option to raise your hand. So Katie, can you raise your hand? So when I see this little icon, I will announce your name, unmute you, and you can ask your questions, and I will leave you on unmute until the question or comment has been responded to your satisfaction, and then I will mute you again and again. This is just to reduce background noise and confusion. And we will do this until all of the questions have been answered. If at any point you're having trouble with the hand raising, you can also just type in here, I would like to ask a question, and make sure you're sending that to everyone, not to Katie. And I will be able to unmute you and announce your name. So that's all. Thank you so much and enjoy the presentation.
Okay, so just to reiterate, I have everyone muted right now because this is just to reduce background noise during the presentation. When it's time for the comment period, when the director is done presenting, what I'll do is you have two ways of commenting. You can either raise your hand in the upper right-hand corner by scrolling over your name and clicking there's a raise hand option, or you can type a comment in the bottom right-hand corner, and I will make sure that I unmute you and get your question. What we did at the last meeting was, after everything was done, I allowed people to unmute themselves and ask questions in case I missed someone. And just to reiterate, if you are having technical difficulties, you can send a message in the right-hand corner to Devin Montserrat, Katie McGriff, or Sabrina Quinones, and they will be able to help you out, even if that means giving you a call on your phone and helping you get on the meeting. We will do everything. So I'm going to unmute the executive director.
Hey. I'm unmuted, and so it's great. I see we've got 21 people on the call, which is wonderful. A lot of folks representing JCHA, and I recognize a lot of also Holland Gardens residents. And, over the last several months, we have begun to do all of our meetings virtually. If you remember, the last time that we had a meeting was January. And we had committed to quarterly meetings, but given the pandemic, that was not possible. We are now going to resume those regular meetings with you. And I'll be also talking about a special meeting with our Section 8 Housing Voucher Director to really give you just a good overview on the Section 8 program. And that came about after a meeting with resident leaders last week, which will be helpful. But today we're going to do a quarterly meeting where we do the status of the redevelopment, and I'm going to provide updates, and we can advance to the next slide. Okay, we did that. Right, so the agenda for today's meeting is an overview of where we are with the redevelopment vision, review of the meetings that we've held. As you may have seen, I know in talking to some of the resident leaders last week, you saw that we're expanding the vision to include homeownership and a public library branch with resident services in it, and also a commercial retail space. So we'll be talking about that. We're going to review the relocation and right of return, the elements of the resolution that our Board of Commissioners has adopted. And I realize I want to just give a special recognition and welcome to Commissioner Reggie Jones, who's on with us tonight. Thank you for joining us, Commissioner. Then we're going to go over relocation options and priorities, because we've begun to think about how we're going to prioritize placements. And then we're going to talk about the adjusted timeline. So we can advance to the next slide. So, and I will say, for many of you, this is going over information you've already heard. The reason why we do this is because we want to make sure that everybody's got the same information, and we always recap. So I know we're repetitive. I've been told about our repetitive nature of how we do these things, but in terms of doing good community engagement practice, I like to just give sort of synopsis of where we are, what has happened, and then to move forward. So we're all working with the same information. That's why we kind of bore you, for some of you who've been with us for all of these meetings, going over many of the same things. And what I find sometimes also, because this is a lot to take in, that even when people are at the different meetings, sometimes we're focused on different aspects, right? Because there are different concerns that come up. So please bear with me. The repetition is for a reason, and it's for a reason to make sure that we're getting clear information to you, and everybody's working with the same set of facts. So overview. In December of 2018, residents working with outside partners demanded that the Jersey City Housing Authority address quality of life conditions at Holland Gardens. What resulted after that was a plan to address work orders. That winter, we also had a significant boiler replacement that we did at the site, and also to begin looking towards what was the future for Holland Gardens. So after getting approval from our Board of Commissioners, we did something unusual in two respects. One, before we even started the redevelopment design process, where we came up with a vision, we made a commitment to one-to-one replacement of all of the public housing units. We call them ACC units in our world at the redeveloped site. The other thing that we did that was a little bit different was that we hired a design firm to meet with residents before we selected a developer. So as you'll hear further on, a developer has not even been selected. We haven't done our what we call procurement. You know, for a public agency like us, we have a lot of rules about how do we select a contractor. We haven't done any of that. What we did was come first and do these sessions with residents, which is not typical. This is kind of an unusual way to do that, but we thought it would be the best way to address the future of Holland Gardens and resident needs. And what happened was we did, and we'll talk about the meetings and how that all happened, was that the best option to address resident needs was to ensure one-to-one replacement of public housing units and meet current HUD guidelines, and financial restrictions would be to redevelop the site for higher density. That means more apartments, mixed use. We'll be talking about some of those mixed uses, commercial space, library, and a mix of income. You could, yeah. So from January 2019 to June 2019, we held 6 design meetings with residents, and also invited a significant number of stakeholders. Who were the stakeholders? The stakeholders, well, of course, commissioners of the Jersey City Housing Authority attended, elected officials. We invited legal services organizations. We invited nonprofit groups, for example, groups like the NAACP, of course, Jersey City Together came. Sometimes representatives of other sites came. But the real purpose of these design meetings was to hear from residents, what did they like, and to really examine whether or not it would be feasible to simply repair rather than redevelop. So the first of these public meetings was held January 28th, 2019, and then we had the monthly at Holland Gardens through June. And we also had a lot of informal meetings with resident leaders and Jersey City Together and other groups as well. So in July, once the vision was completed, our board adopted it, and then we began having additional meetings. And it was to provide an overview of rights to relocation, which are covered under federal law. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but under federal law, we are required to relocate all residents. We cannot move on doing the redevelopment until everybody is appropriately housed. And we're also required to pay for things like moving costs, and also to provide counseling for all of the residents. And we'll be talking about that in later slides. So then in October of 2019, in response to concerns that residents raised about their right to return, we went back to our Board of Commissioners and we asked them to approve a right to return policy and relocation policy for the Housing Authority. We have not written all of these policies yet, but what the board has said we have to do is to create a right of return for the residents. And we did this, which is now more than, close to 3 years before we're even thinking, at that time, 3 years before we're even thinking to tear down the buildings and relocate people, was to give residents an assurance that the authority would stand by its word and that our leadership was directing us to protect tenant rights. So then so we went over that policy in October of 2019, and then we met again in January of this year. And today, November 17th, marks, I believe we've had 10 official public meetings. When we count that, 1, 2, 3. And as well as many, many informal meetings. And those meetings will continue into the future. So that gives us a sense of where we are. So what have we been doing between the time we last saw you in January of this year and right now, November 17th. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet during the pandemic. And to be quite honest, our focus at the Housing Authority was on maintaining operations and responding to COVID-19 for residents and for staff. So we, as you'll see, have sort of extended the timeline a bit, given some of the challenges that we face, particularly early on in the pandemic. And we also turned a lot of our focus on things that residents needed, you know, food security efforts, access to COVID-19 testing, really working with a lot of our partners to provide better service, wellness checks, those types of things really were the focus of the agency, particularly during the spring and the summer. What we more recently began to focus on a few months ago was figuring out, given the vision that's been adopted, which includes preservation of all 192 units, we really wanted to look at our ability to provide affordable housing even beyond that preservation. I know that that's something that residents had expressed interest in, and we were certainly interested in the same thing. And so we've determined that we would like to add a home ownership component with at least half and hopefully more of the units being marketed towards low to moderate income residents, with a priority for Holland Gardens residents and Jersey City Housing Authority residents after that. And we also were thinking about ways to foster greater resident engagement and support when residents returned to the community once the site was redeveloped. You can change the slide. So what does that expanded vision look like? So earlier this month, and I'm going to put a plug in for our monthly Jersey City Board of Commissioners meetings. We do those online. Everyone is welcome. These are your meetings. They approved a resolution authorizing us to explore adding a home ownership component, which would include home ownership, as I said before, to moderate and low income families, including a branch of the Jersey City Free Public Library with embedded community space and a Jersey City Housing Authority Resident Empowerment and Community Engagement Office, and adding commercial rental space for a grocery store, bank, or other retail establishment. So home ownership. We thought it was really important, if we could, to add the opportunity to purchase a home in this neighborhood, which is rapidly changing and really doesn't offer a lot of opportunities for residents of limited means to have the choice to own a home and be permanently part of that community as a homeowner. And home ownership is something that the Housing Authority has had success in. In the 90s through today, there is the Dwight Street Home Ownership Program, which has been very, very successful. I believe that we have now sold 46 out of those 50 units and only had one default. So part of doing home ownership the right way for low to moderate income residents means that we need to put together opportunities for down payment assistance, housing counseling, so that if you're able to purchase a home, you're going to be able to stay and take care of that home for as long as you like. So it is a much more involved process in building a program like this, but we think it's important, particularly in this neighborhood. That is an issue that we think we can add value and really provide a different type of opportunity for Holland residents and Jersey City Housing Authority residents, and then open to others. This does not mean that we're limiting the number of public housing. No, everybody is going to have a public housing spot, right? If that's what you choose to do. But we thought this was a great way to add to the number of affordable, the number of affordable options in the neighborhood. So we can talk more about that, but we think it's really important. We know that homeownership represents stability. It also represents an opportunity to build intergenerational wealth. And it's something that we think that we can do for the benefit first for our residents and to other low and moderate income Jersey City residents. So we can advance. Why the Jersey City Free Public Library? So I don't know how many of you are active users of the Jersey City Library, but I will tell you they have been doing incredible work during the pandemic. If you go on Facebook, you can catch a lot of live content. They have story hour for children, their classes on knitting and exercise. I guess the point of this is a library is not just about loaning books. It's what we call an anchor institution. They have digital access and tutoring, family programming, job search assistance, ESL services, and a variety of media material to be borrowed or viewed online. I've had many conversations with the library director, and we're both excited about the opportunity to have a library branch here on this side of the city. And not only to have a library branch, but that one that has a dedicated commitment to Holland Gardens residents. And that commitment is because we're going to put a REIS department. For those of you who don't know, it's our Resident Empowerment and Community Engagement Office. We're going to locate it along with community space in this new library branch. So what is REIS? I'm going to also put a plug in for the REIS department. We have direct service staff, and we also work with over 36 organizations in the city to provide comprehensive needs assessments, care coordination, employment services, resume writing and job search support, and referrals to quality local organizations. Connects people with education and job training, healthcare, which includes services for mental health, maternal and child health, health screenings. We help seniors and disabled residents with independent living, food and nutrition, mentoring, clothes donations, and other services. Services are all voluntary and provided in a confidential setting. By embedding the REIS department in the library, we know that we wanted to, for residents to feel that JCHA, even though it is redeveloping the site, that we still have a very strong vested interest in serving our residents and serving them well. Commercial rental space for retail. We are looking to use something called new market tax credits. That's why we're to help us pay for the affordable home ownership and the building of the library, and that includes putting in commercial rental space. Some of the ideas that we've had have been adding a grocery store or bank. But as soon as we get to the Q&A, we'd really love to know what you think this neighborhood might need for a commercial retail space. Now I'm just going to provide a brief overview on relocation and right of return. We've talked about this many times before, but I thought it'd be good to give a brush up. So the Jersey City Housing Authority, I mentioned at the beginning of this, that we are required to relocate people. That is a right that you have. And one of the things that we did was we voluntarily adopted the Uniform Relocation Act, which is a federal law, which has specific tenant protections. It requires us to provide reimbursement for moving costs and certain moving related expenses. It requires us to provide advisory services, relocation counseling, and full explanation of payments and assistance that you're entitled to. We have to make sure that the new housing that you're placed in meets federal standards in terms of being decent, safe, and sanitary. That's the language that we use in public housing authorities. But that means that we actually have to inspect the units that you go to. And we need to make sure that they're functionally equivalent to your present dwelling. So we need to right size families. We can't put a family of 4 in a studio. You are entitled to right size, decent, safe housing or homes while you're waiting for the site to be redeveloped. And the URA requires us to provide a 90 days written notice prior to the date of move out. So there are several notices that federal law requires us to provide. A general information notice to let you know that the property is being considered for redevelopment, which is something that you already know. We've been talking about this since 2019. A notice of eligibility for relocation. This is the most important thing, and it's going to be quite a while before you receive this. That's the notice that tells you that as of a specified date that you're eligible for relocation assistance and details the estimated amount and type of assistance you will receive. Why do I say it's going to be a while before that happens? We have to select a developer. We have to get the plan formally approved by HUD. And the notice of eligibility comes after that. We cannot provide it before. And it also impacts the type of funding that we use to relocate you. You're also entitled to a 90-day notice. You'll be provided with a minimum of a 90-day notice before being asked to vacate the premises on a specific date. These notices are required by law. And what we're trying to do in having these conversations 2 years before anyone is to be relocated at minimum is to make sure that we address all of the questions and concerns and do very, very careful planning. You can advance the slide. So federal law does not require us to provide a right of return. That is something that the Jersey City Board of Commissioners has directed us to do and what we had proposed. So in our right of return policy, which is on the website, and it has been passed out at different meetings, and I will say will be passed out to all residents in Spanish and English before the end of the year in December, so that everybody has a copy, commits to one-to-one replacement of all of the public housing units. It affirms our commitment to communicate with you with transparency during the process. And it reaffirms our commitment to adhere to federal, state, and local requirements, all of the legal requirements. And it establishes special tenancy rights, protections, and guidelines for relocated residents that will enable them to return to the redeveloped property. We will be providing each of you through the mail a copy, but the full resolution and all of the information about relocation and right of return are available on the Holland Gardens website in both English and Spanish. When we meet with residents, the natural question is, what are my relocation options? And I always try to be honest and say it's complicated because it is affected by how much income you earn. Section 8 vouchers are not available to everyone. It'll be affected by some seniors have expressed interest in wanting to move to senior-only properties. Other residents have specific needs in the neighborhood that they feel very strongly about, and that'll determine where they move to. I have received inquiries about the ability to use a Section 8 voucher to move outside of Jersey City. And yes, that is absolutely possible. People have been interested in project-based vouchers at mixed finance sites that the Jersey City has a relationship with. So there are a variety of options, and they really do require one-on-one counseling and consideration. There are a lot of different factors in determining whether or not you would want to be relocated to another public housing site where you may have family and friends, and that would be an important resource for you, or whether or not you want to move outside of the city temporarily while you're waiting for the site to be redeveloped. It'll also, as I said before, be affected by things like your family composition and size, and also your income. But the basic options can include a voucher, a project-based voucher at a mixed finance site or other site, public housing, family or senior sites, other senior housing in the city, a housing choice voucher outside of Jersey City. And some people may decide, you know, I don't know that I'm coming back, and then receive a certain amount of money, which could be relocation payment, which could be a down payment assistance. So there are lots of different considerations and decisions, and they're all very specific to the needs of your family. When I met with resident leaders last week, I agreed that even though we're about 2 years ahead, that it would be very, very helpful if we could have an overview of the Section 8 program, right? And Patricia Ramirez, who is the director of that program, has a lot of experience. We actually at the Housing Authority manage about 4,500 voucher assisted households and work with both the household and the landlord. He has also been part of prior relocations, and I think it's a great way for you to begin to meet and know her team and ask even general questions about Section 8. We are going to hold a meeting on December 3rd at 6 p.m., again like this virtually, so that you can have a conversation with our housing voucher team to talk about Section 8. You can advance the slide. So I also promised you that we were going to prioritize certain households, certain families when we do relocation, which is going to happen in fall of 2022. But who we are focused on prioritizing, who we want to place first, are households that have seniors or disabled residents. That's one of our priorities, and the first set of households that we want to prioritize so that they are closer to Holland Gardens. You know, we will do our best to place as many of those families downtown as possible. We also want to prioritize households with children attending neighborhood schools. So those are the households that we will first work with when we do relocation. And the way we do that is that we meet with you individually. We also will be putting out a resident survey as we get closer to the time. To be honest, it's too soon now. We really can't, because whatever we would have would be stale by the time we address this in 2022. But that is how we would approach it in terms of prioritizing. So that first we address the needs of seniors and disabled residents, and also households with children attending neighborhood schools as our priority for relocating close to Holland Gardens, if that's what they would like. I already mentioned this. We will have that upcoming information session on the Housing Choice Voucher Program with Patricia Ramirez and her staff. And we will have more of these, but this will be an opportunity to get an overview. So as I've mentioned, last time we were together, we anticipated that no one would be moved before summer of 2022. Given the pandemic, we've had to adjust our timeline a little bit. So, and we'll go over that with you. So we anticipate that our process for identifying a developer will start winter into the spring of 2021. We're first going to do a request for qualifications just so we get a basic set of organizations that could be able to do a project of the size. And then in the spring and summer of 2021, we will do the request for proposals. That's when people will put forward formal applications for the site. As I mentioned last week, residents will be able to hear those presentations in an advisory capacity. We expect that the final decision will come either summer or fall of 2021. The same way we have taken quite some time to do the planning so far, once a developer is selected, it takes close to a year, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, hopefully not a little more in this case, because we've done a lot of careful planning to prepare. And what does that mean? We have to get site approvals and permits. And we need to do all of the necessary research, you know, architects and engineers. We need to finalize the financing for that project. So we expect that will happen. And I realize, can we go back one? So if you go forward, that would really, I see a typo here. That would be fall, if you go advance again, would be fall of 2021 to fall of 2022. It's just a typo. We didn't mean 22, 23, and I'll correct that for the copy that gets distributed on the site. And then that means that we anticipate that relocation won't happen before fall of 2022. So we're really thinking roughly 2 years from now before relocation happens. We wish, you know, you always want things to move a little bit more quickly, but in this case, we've just had to add a little bit more time because of where things are, and wanted to let you know that. I know that there were questions about the timeline. You see, this is a really nice looking, what they call an infographic with pictures. That's available on the Holland Gardens website. And what we can do is we can include the updated timeline in the mailing that we do so that everybody has a copy of the resolution with a letter from me as well. So you have it mailed to you, but it is available. In the meantime, you want to ensure and maintain your eligibility for relocation assistance. If you leave the site now for any reason, before you've gotten your letter of relocation eligibility, which is maybe going to come maybe a year and a half from now, you know, but definitely more than a year from now, you're not eligible to come back. And that's an important thing that I always try to share, right? People cannot leave the site now and then have a right of return. So if you want to return to the property and you want the authority to cover the relocation, you actually cannot leave the site. You know, we have a lot of stable long-term residents of the site, so I don't see this as a huge problem, but I want to be really transparent with you. We can't have someone leave and then come back later and expect to return or to get relocation assistance. You have to have the letter of relocation eligibility. And given the timeline, it's going to be some time before that's issued. You know, you will be meeting with a relocation coordinator prior to moving to ensure all your paperwork is in order and that you understand what your rights are and what your options are. So this is not the type of thing that we give you the information and then you sort of figure out on your own. It's really important for you to meet with the counselor because there's a lot of paperwork and we want to make sure that you have every opportunity to be relocated and return. And I know sometimes people are, they've heard this, they're making decisions, they may have found a place. We really have to be strict about this because we cannot use our funds and return you if we haven't followed these policies. During this process, all of the rules regarding housing remain in effect. What's in the admissions and continued occupancy policies. So we want to make sure that you continue to do what you're doing in terms of payments and abiding by lease obligations. Those are the two things that will protect your ability to stay at the site and be relocated and return when the site is ready. There are lots of ways to stay up to date. We are back to our quarterly meetings, but we're actually going to meet a little more frequently than that over the next few months. I would like for us, we're going to have the December meeting with our Section 8 staff to begin talking about the Section 8 program. I would like for us to meet again in January, just slightly under the quarterly. So we will be providing that information to you. All of the information, every video, every document, every resolution is available on that site. And maybe what we can do at the beginning of the next meeting that we have in January is that we'll do a brief tour of it so that everybody kind of knows where everything is. And we have a lot of very specific answers in a frequently asked questions portion. So if you see, there's a picture of our resident comment cards. We read them and we answer them and we continue to answer them. And the question that you have may be the question that your neighbor has. So it's really important for you to ask those questions, and then we commit to in writing the answers to those questions. And you could send them by email. You can drop them off at the Holland Gardens office. You can, I really don't want for people to feel like there is hard to get information. Sometimes we don't have the information yet because we're early on in the process. But if you feel like you don't have access to information, let us do better and let us show you where it lives. And that's why we created the website. So 24 hours a day, all of this information is there. If you have problems accessing this information online, we are happy. You can reach out to us and we can get hard copies of certain things you would like. But all of these fabulous videos are on there. So, this is all stuff that we stand by and that you can revisit and say, oh yeah, they did say this, or I realize now I have a question about what this means. And that's what I have for the presentation. Again, we look forward to seeing you and other residents on December 3rd for the Section 8 review. And it's a great way to get to know that team if you have questions about Section 8. And now I'm going to turn it over to questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vivian. Nehru, I am going to So I guess we can leave this slide on here just so people can see where they can direct questions. I do want to there is a caveat to the resident comment card. I've gotten a few resident comment cards that are about individual circumstances with relocation, and the Housing Authority can't currently answer questions about individual circumstances during relocation, just because we have not started the relocation yet. But these are all things that you'll be able to go over with your relocation coordinator when you meet with them. So for example, if you have a preference for moving to a specific public housing site or anything like that, you can discuss that with the relocation coordinator when you meet with them.
Right.
Is that?
No, I think that's excellent, Liz. And I just wanted to say that is a very real issue, right? I know that there are preferred locations. So there are two things that come into that. It's all going to be about the number of vacancies that site has, right? So when we relocate, we cannot move someone to relocate somebody else. So it's really how many available apartments and whether or not you meet the criteria, right? So for example, if you would be eligible for a project-based voucher based on income, whether or not we have a right size apartment at the public housing site that you want to move to, we won't know whether or not there's a vacancy that you could move into until we're much closer. So those are some of the reasons why we can't commit to you now. Oh, I really want to go to Catherine Todd. Can you, can you confirm that I can go to Catherine Todd? It's going to be a matter of whether or not you're eligible for that site. Do you meet like the senior eligibility and the income requirements for that site? And also, do we have a vacancy at that site at the time that you're going to be relocated?
Right. And I can really quickly just show you the Holland Gardens website. So the Holland Gardens website is so this is the Holland Gardens website. It's hollandgardensvision.org. And if you go to relocation, you'll see a bar that says resident FAQ. And this is where we keep an updated list of common resident questions. And if we get questions on the comment cards or through email that we can answer more generally, we answer them on here. I don't see anyone raising their hand, and I didn't see any comments. But just to reiterate, if you do want to make a comment, you can use the raise hand function in the top right-hand corner. If you find your name, you can raise your hand, or you can type a comment in the bottom right-hand corner in the comment box. And then if we don't seem to be getting any comments that way, I'll create an option to allow participants to unmute themselves. So you can unmute yourself and ask a question. I would just ask that we try to just do one person at a time. So again, at this point, if you would like to, you can unmute yourself and ask a question or make a comment. Mr. Morales, do you have a question? Mr. Morales, are you raising your hand? You just have to unmute yourself.
Okay, that's what I did.
Oh, okay.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
well.
Will you be using private senior sites for seniors for relocation?
Yes, we will. Right.
All right.
All depending on their vacancy rate.
Okay.
So we have certain senior sites that are within our sort of family.
Uh-huh.
But there are also other senior sites where we have project-based options. I'm using so much like Jersey City Housing Authority speak, but that there are apartments available for Section 8 that are actually tied to those senior buildings.
Okay.
So I know when we met, there's been strong interest in what the potential list of senior sites could be. So within our system, we have downtown PJ Stewart, and we also have going up the hill, Catherine Todd at the former Montgomery.
Okay.
There's also Lafayette Senior, which is part of the former Lafayette Gardens. There's Unico, which is not too far away. There's Ocean, I always get my oceans. Towers, yes. So, and of course we have Berry Gardens. So, those priorities, we're going to be placing seniors, as I said, first.
Okay.
And we will try to place as many seniors close to Holland Gardens.
Okay.
I've also known people who say to me, I'm from Duncan. Would it be possible for me to go to Gloria Robinson? Yes, but it's going to depend on whether or not we have a right-sized apartment and a vacancy available at that time.
Okay. I'm between the ages of 55 and 62. So in 2022, I'll be 60.
Yep.
Someone told me there's this thing about pre-senior housing.
We don't have pre-senior
No,
housing.
okay.
Does anybody from Housing Authority, but eligibility starts at 62 for us?
All right, I just won't be quite there just yet. I'll probably be like between 60 and 62. Because I don't want to go to another site and then want to move to a senior building once I turn 62. Would they put me in a senior building, not being a senior just yet?
No, we
Okay.
can't. We can't put you in a senior building, but I mean, think about it this way. We're expecting to relocate people fall of 2022.
Yeah.
So whatever age you are and lose, right, it's if we have somebody who's just about to turn 62.
If it's close to doing the paperwork, so it'll take a couple of months. So if he's going to be turning 62 by the time we're done with his paperwork, we'll start treating him as a senior.
Yeah, I'll be.
But if he's more than a year away, then no, he will not be, because you have to be 62 in order to qualify for a senior only site.
Yeah, I'll turn 62 in January 2024.
You'll be too young. We can't put you in a senior building.
You made my day. Because I just moved here January of this year.
Okay.
And I was hoping to be put in a senior building, but if not, hey, I'll let the cars fall where they fall. You know what I mean?
I
we might have something for you at Curry's, where it's senior, kind of disabled, depends on your circumstances. But like Liz said before, you'll speak with the relocation coordinator,
Right.
And she'll be able to fit you with what you need at that time.
Okay. No, I guess I'll wait.
Yeah, and it's a lot of waiting, and I understand the frustration for staff, for residents. It's like, we're telling you you're going to move, and then we're telling you, well, we can't tell you where you're going to move to.
Yeah, I know.
But it's really, I don't know who's going to be in those buildings at that time. There may be availability we haven't thought about in certain sites, but as we get closer, we'll be able to identify where the vacancies are. It's just a lot happens in 2 years.
I waited 7 years.
Oh, wow.
So, I was like, one day, and then once I got that letter, 2 weeks, I was like, okay, it's happening,
Yeah, it's a long way.
It does, for me, it does pay the way. That's all I can say. And I grew up in Duncan back in the day, so I know how the system works.
Okay. Right, you understand that. Yeah, the wait lists are long, but when we relocate, people have priority. So that's why we're able to move people into these different sites because you're prioritized, because you go ahead of other people on the wait list, which is a conversation that we also have on the other hand, like, how come you haven't picked me yet, right?
Yeah, I fall into two categories. I fall into the, I'm gonna say senior, but even though I'm not there, but slash disabled at the same time. So it's hopefully a work for me, you know?
Yeah,
I
I
got
hope
time. Where am I gonna go? You know? I tell people just be patient, apply and wait. That's what I did. I applied and waited.
Well, we're committed to working with you when we get closer to help you find a location that works for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Would-
the other thing is we will meet with people as often as we need to meet with you.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the federal law says we got to meet with you once. I've said it before. Sometimes things are complicated. It might require a couple meetings to figure out what the right thing is. So
Right.
we're committed to doing that.
Yeah. Okay. I like this Zoom thing. I never did this before.
Yeah, this is what we're all doing now. We're going to just see each other on Zoom for
Yeah.
quite some time. Nice speaking with you.
Likewise.
That reminds me, we have Mia, our occupancy clerk, is taking attendance, which helps us just keep a record of everyone who goes to these meetings. So if you are looking at the Zoom meeting on your phone, if you could just unmute yourself and give me your name, or change your name in the participants panel so I can see who's attending. I don't see anyone else. Again, you can unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment.
Yeah, I see three. I got three participants. If you want to, you can always just send, if you don't want to identify that Galaxy A10e, I've got two phone numbers. If you want to just shoot a message to Liz Davidoff, you can connect with her, or you can unmute and just introduce yourselves if you're comfortable with that.
And I'll put my email address in the comment box.
Also, I know it's 7:05. If you don't have questions, I would also say if there are questions you want, we do strive to be, I've had communications with individual residents about different issues. Liz Davidoff is available. If we don't have a direct answer for you, or there's a complicated question, we will make sure it gets to the right person. So if there are no further questions tonight, or if something occurs to you after the meeting, you can just reach out to us. We do respond to emails and phone calls. Might take us a day, but we do respond. So this is not the last chance. We're going to be having more meetings over the next 2 years, and we're going to see each other December 3rd and then again in January. All right, well, I'm going to close the meeting. So nice to see everybody. You know how to reach us. If you don't know how to reach us, ask Liz Nunez. She knows how to reach us. And have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.